It was such a normal night. Chris was an amazing guy. He had the idea to go to the tracks, and that's when somebody comes out from behind an electrical box. It never crosses your mind of like, this person wants to kill you. I really don't think I had fear bubbling up in me until he started to tie us up.
He was scary. He almost looked like a wild animal. I don't know how to say it any other way.
He could have kept the charade up a long, long time, and he could have crossed over the border and killed a lot more people.
2 people have been found murdered next door to their church.
He smashed her face with a sledgehammer, same one he used on Skip.
There wasn't any reason for them to have been killed. They were just good people.
He stabs me in my neck and with that weapon that he had, and he says, look how easily I could kill you.
He was like a phantom. You didn't know. He was completely off the grid.
Resendiz had so many different looks. The way the man could change his looks like a chameleon. We believe that he could simply look at a train and know where it's going.
I remember him saying it was better than Greyhound.
He killed the Cernics, went back to Mexico, killed Miskoviccia, went back to Mexico, let's go and come back and come back and back.
You had the right to remain silent.
When they brought him in and I rode up the elevator with him, I hate to say this, but I could have taken him out in the elevator, and I thought about it for a second, okay? It was a natural reaction from what this guy did.
Her mother was laying there with a grubbing hoe embedded in her forehead.
All of his victims were just such good people.
She didn't deserve this. She never hurt nobody.
My skin crawled just looking at him. I knew how evil he was.
I've asked him if he picked up a nickname, and he said they called him Choo Choo Man, and he smiled at that.
I used to love to hear the trains, but not anymore. I hope maybe one day we can get to where we can enjoy that sound again, but I don't know if it's going to come.
He was known as the Railroad Killer. In the late 1990s, fear and panic swept through railroad towns across the United States over a rail-riding fugitive who would jump on and off freight trains, preying on unsuspected victims, oftentimes murdering them inside their own homes. He was identified as Angel Maturino Resendiz, a Mexican-born drifter who bumped Osama bin Laden from the top spot on the FBI's most wanted list.
This story has taken us from Texas to Kentucky to here in Indiana, where one woman, one survivor, shared with us the story about the night that she was traumatized and terrorized by Resendiz. After she and her boyfriend left a fraternity party walking along the railroad tracks, they were brutally attacked and tied up. He was left for dead. She survived. After years of evading the authorities, there was a stunning surrender that captured headlines across the world.
Chris was an amazing guy. He was 6'5", so he was really tall, and you just, I don't know, you got a sense from him that he wanted to be your friend. As soon as you met him, you felt comfortable. He loved to give great big bear hugs. That was kind of his signature move, that he gave great big bear hugs.
In August of 1997, Holly Dunn Pendleton was starting a new school year with a new boyfriend.
We met in college, so we actually met at a bar. We had a lot of similarities. We were raised the same. We both came from Catholic families, and we were both from the Midwest. You know, there was a lot. I think I thought, this guy is fun and in a fraternity, which I had never dated a guy that was in a fraternity before.
She and her boyfriend, Chris Mayer, were both juniors at the University of Kentucky in Lexington.
We had really just begun the year, and I was saying, okay, I'm gonna do better than I've ever done before. I'm gonna go to all my classes. I'm gonna get good grades, you know, like reaffirming that I'm gonna be a good student. And then I'm like, but as soon as Chris says like, let's go to a party, I'm like, okay, let's go, you know, like I was so excited. When he picked me up, I thought it was a date, but he picked me up and there were like 8 people in the car. And I was like, man, this is not what I was expecting. And so we go to this party, and Chris had actually lived in this house before. So he knew the area, he knew the house, he knew all the people because they were all his fraternity brothers and his friends, you know? So like, I didn't know anybody there. I think I just felt a little like, I really just want to be alone with Chris. I don't want to be here with all these people. And I think that Chris kind of read that. He could tell, like, I was not wanting to be there.
The pair decided to take a break from the party and go for a walk.
He said, let's go take a walk. And he said the tracks are, just 2 blocks that way. And I said, oh, that's awesome. Let's get some coins and put them on the tracks so the trains will flatten them. And because I had done that when I was a kid. And I was like, so let's find some coins, And I think we even went around and found some coins. I think as we're going to get the coins is when 2 of his fraternity brothers were like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, going to the tracks. And they're like, we're coming with you. I'm just trying to get alone with Chris. And now 2 of his fraternity brothers are going with us. So we all go to walk to the tracks. And we put the coins on the tracks that we had collected. So we were literally waiting for the train to come by and no trains came. So, Chris and I were talking and kind of showing the other 2 fraternity brothers that like, we don't really want you here. I think they took the hint and they were like, okay guys, we're gonna go back to the party. Cause it was, and it was boring for them. And Chris and I were like, okay, this is our opportunity to stay here and talk. And that's one thing that Chris and I could do was we could talk for hours and about nothing. And then I loved that.
They thought they were alone. They were wrong.
Maybe 15, 20 minutes passed before we got up to go back to the party. It wasn't long. We got up to leave and we start walking back toward the party.
That's when the 2 spotted a figure, a person emerging from behind an electrical box on the side of the tracks.
He said, do you have any money? And then it was more like, give me all your money. And you could almost tell the anger was starting to build up in this person. And I didn't see it, but he had a weapon on Chris the whole time. I didn't see the weapon till later. So I didn't know really why we were complying. And he told Chris to get down on his knees because Chris was really tall and he wanted to go through his backpack. So I'm like, what do you want? Like, if you want some money, I can take my ATM card and go get you some money. What do you want, And at that point, I saw the weapon. It almost looked like an ice pick. It was just a sharp, looked like some kind of knife, but ice pick. It was really thin. I mean, that just introduced a whole nother level of fear. I had no idea what was about to come, but it was just like, give you whatever you want and leave us alone.
At what point did, you start to realize he's saying no to all of this? You start to really, that fear starts to, come up in your throat, in your stomach, and you're like, this is not good.
I really don't think I had fear bubbling up in me until he started to tie us up. So he dragged Chris, he took him by his shirt because he was still on his knees and kind of dragged him to the side of the tracks. And I just started to walk behind him because I don't want to be dragged. So I'm like, okay, I'll just walk over here. Where are you taking us? We were laying face down and I'm kind of watching what this guy is doing. And he's got this bag and it's sort of up at the tracks. And so he lifts something out of the bag and I can remember hearing him rip it. And he rips it into gags for us. And so he comes over and he gags Chris first. And then he comes over to me and he gags me, and I don't know what made me think to stick out my tongue so that the gag didn't work. I stuck out my tongue really hard, and so he couldn't tie the gag tight. He tied up Chris's hands with his backpack. And then he took off my belt and tied up my hands behind my back with my belt.
Tied up, terrified, the 2 watched as their attacker walked back up towards the tracks. Frantically, they tried to help each other escape.
I got my hands untied, but I held on to the belt because I wanted to be able to hold on to it to make it look like I was still tied up. I'm trying to tell Chris, like, stick your tongue out, the gag won't work. And I pulled down his gag so he could talk to me. I was getting upset. And Chris was like, everything's gonna be okay. Just trying to calm me down. And he comes, I don't even know how much time passed before he comes over to Chris. When I replay it in my mind, he hit Chris several times with a rock. It wasn't just one time, but he did only hit him one time, and it was a 52-pound rock. I do remember him carrying it over, and it was like really hard for him to carry because it was really heavy. But I remember him carrying it over and just dropping it on Chris's head. And at that point, I think my mind changed to, obviously he did want to hurt us. That wasn't until that moment that I'm like, wow, this is for real. Like he's really he's hurting us now, and I might not make it through this. Like that crossed my mind at that moment, like I might not make it through this.
That fear soared when Chris stopped moving and the attacker turned to Holly.
He came over to me and he climbed on top of me, and I heard Chris gurgling. And he actually went over to him and got up and went over to him. And he said, he's gone, don't worry about him anymore. So then he comes over to me and he's going to rape me. And it didn't even cross my mind that that was going to happen. So I try to fight him. He climbs on top of me and I'm trying to punch him. I'm trying to slap him. I'm trying to scream. I don't know how to fight. I'd never been in a fight in my life, but I'm trying to fight for my life. And he stabs me in my neck and with that weapon that he had. And he says, look how easily I could kill you. And so I just stopped. I mean, I literally felt like I was floating above my body. I didn't feel anything. I said, and I was saying to him, like, what's your name? My name's Sarah. I had told him that my name was Sarah. And I said, and I've got a family and I've got a sister. I've got people who are going to want to see me again. Do you have a family? Do you know, and I'm trying to trying to humanize him, right? And so I'm asking him about his family and if they would want to see him again. And, you know, like trying to show how our lives are similar. He was answering my questions. He was, you know, thought I was being nice at the time. And I thought that I had actually befriended him. And so after he raped me, he put my pants back on. The last thing I remember is him taking one of my earrings and he took a ring that I had on. And I don't remember anything after that. I don't remember being hit. I remember him knowing he was gone. And I don't know how I knew he was gone, but I knew he was gone.
Badly bruised and beaten, she knew she had to find help.
They never found what he hit me with, but I was hit 5 or 6 times in my face and 5 or 6 times in the back of my head. I had a broken eye socket, a broken jaw, and I had all these cuts in the back of my head. And I'm all bloody, I'm a broken jaw, so I can't even talk right. And I walked to a person's house to go get help, and I actually don't even knock. I see that the TV is on in this house, and I open it's just a screen door, and I open the screen door and walk into their house. I'm sure that had to frighten them a little bit because the guy that was sitting on the couch studying didn't even know if I was there to hurt him or if whoever was after me was coming back to get me. Like, he didn't know anything. But I just said, could you call 911? He said I just kept asking for a glass of water. I just needed water, which I found out later was a sign of shock, that I was going into shock. You ask for water. I mean, I don't really even remember being loaded onto the ambulance. I remember riding in the ambulance to the hospital, but I don't remember being even put on the ambulance. I asked the guy in the back of the ambulance with me if we could go to McDonald's and get me a cheeseburger because I was really hungry. And so, you know, and you might not expect that when somebody's been through something so terrible, but I think humor is my defense mechanism. So, I mean, that I know that now. And so I was trying to like diffuse the situation. You can find humor when at the darkest places, and it can help. So I think that's what I was doing.
But fear set in again when she started asking about Chris.
From the time that I got to that guy's house till the time I got onto the ambulance, I kept saying, my friend's still out there, my friend's still out there, make sure they check on my friend that's still out there, my friend's still out there, my friend's still out there. Nobody was talking about him. And that also made me think, like, this is bad. Like, it's not good. And I know why you're not talking about him, because he's gone. I remember my parents had really just gotten there, and I looked at my dad and I said, Chris is gone, isn't he? And he said, yep, he is.
At that moment, what did you think?
I don't think I had the emotional capacity at that point to even like swallow that. Couldn't even show emotion because the adrenaline was too high. So I was in the hospital for 5 days. My dad thought I had dyed my hair red. And as soon as they wired my mouth shut, my dad literally got me, had the discharge papers done while I was still in surgery, and promised them that he'd, you know, do all the things, and they discharged me right after surgery, and my dad flew me home. I went back to school 1 month after the attack. I went home and I needed to heal physically. And I did, and I healed physically, and then I told my parents I need to go back to school. I went back because I needed to take back control. I needed to be in something normal. So going back to school for me was normal.
But while life was returning to normal, the attack never left her mind, and the sound of a train approaching would trigger terror.
I'm trying to just keep living and doing what I'm doing, but it was hard. If I drove over the tracks or if I heard a train going down those tracks, I literally would break out into a cold sweat and I stopped talking and I had a panic attack.
At this point, there's no talk of a serial killer. It was just police were looking for a person who attacked 2 college kids.
I remember my detective saying, I think we'll catch him when he does this again.
I was very, very close to her. She was a fantastic student. She loved reading, she loved school. She always knew since she was, I think, in 6th or 7th grade that she was going to attend Rice University. That was just her plan, and she did. She was such a vibrant, just energetic, ambitious person that really believed in education. That's who she was, that's the sister that I know, and that will always be the image that I have of her.
For the first time now, a member of the Dominguez family is speaking publicly about the murder of a young woman who had her whole life ahead of her. Growing up near Brownsville, Texas, Alex Dominguez remembers his younger sister, Noemi, as someone who knew her calling early in life, a role model to their siblings.
That was something that she always wanted to do, is be a teacher. And you might think, well, why bother going to such a high-level university if you end up just in a classroom? The way she thought it was, well, that's why I'm going to this high-level university, is because I want these kids to excel. And that's a tremendous gift to give back. I have 9 brothers and sisters. So you always had a pair, you always had a partner in crime to go and learn with, whether it was going to the public library or playing games together. She was 2 years younger than me, so we were always doing things together when we were in school, and then we thankfully were able to spend a couple of years in college together. She was a fantastic actress. And competed in speech and debate. So, she and I were debate partners for a year when I was a senior. It was really fun. One of my favorite things about her is she really began to study and read Japanese anime. She thought it was fantastic. It was a different type of reading material. And at one point, she had one at school when she was a teacher. And I think her students saw it and they said, Miss, what is this? And she told them it was Japanese anime, a manga, and in their free time, she would teach the kids Japanese. Who does that?
In June of 1999, 26-year-old Noemi had just left her teaching job at Benjamin Franklin Elementary School in Houston to pursue a master's degree. She was living in an apartment in South Houston, not far from the Texas Medical Center and the railroad tracks.
There were nice middle class and some working class homes in the area. She reported there was never really any crime in the area, so she always felt comfortable there. She felt safe. She was the only one living in Houston. Everybody else either lived in the Hill Country, Dallas, or were back home. And so none of us had any inkling of a serial killer being out there.
Noemi had planned a trip to visit her brother Alex, who was living in Dallas.
I would sometimes go down to Houston. I'd spend time with her. We'd go eat Chinese food together. And we would just kind of catch up on life. And thankfully, we stayed in touch with many of our college friends. We had a number of mutual friends. And I knew that she was going to be coming up to Dallas soon for an anime convention. And I just thought it was great. I remember she gave me a few videotapes of Japanese anime, said, here, watch these are great. And that's kind of how she was.
But on the day Noemi was supposed to visit, she never called and never came.
She was going to come up from Houston, and our other sister was going to be coming up from a different location. And she said that, she hadn't heard from my sister. And we thought, well, she may be running late. This was really at the time when cell phones were not prevalent. And so we thought we would give her a little bit of time to see if she showed up. And we waited and waited, and nothing, we hadn't heard from her. So I picked up my older sister who lived in Garland, Texas. And we decided to just drive down and stop at every major town that we could find a tow truck driver, just to see if maybe she broke down somewhere. And of course, we kept doing this until we finally ended up in Houston. It was very unusual. It was certainly not like her. She's the type of person that if she had broken down somewhere on the road, she would have called somebody to let somebody know, especially my parents. She would have probably called my mom, saying, this happened, I'll be here.
When Noemi's brother and sister arrived, her front door was open, but it appeared no one was home.
We spent a a few hours there. Her boots were outside that she was going to be wearing at the anime convention. So we thought that was odd, but her vehicle wasn't there. So we didn't know what to think at that point. We called one of my friends who was a med student and doing residency in one of the Houston hospitals, and I asked her to check to see if somebody matching her description and her name had come in for any reason. She called back later saying that she hadn't heard anywhere, and then she certainly called around. So we spent some time in her apartment going through her different credit card companies, calling them, asking, has anybody used a credit card? But most of them said, no, nobody's used a credit card. We must have been there for a few hours, and it was getting late, and I remember telling my sister that came with me, there's only one place that we haven't looked. And I told her, just stay here, let me go look. And there had been a pile of clothes. It's not unusual, I think, when Noemi's in a hurry to get somewhere to her just to make a mess. And well, that's where I looked, and that's where I found her. I think now, like, looking back at the things that I'd seen in the apartment, a toaster oven being on the floor, just things out of place, and just imagining what she went through, because she must have been going through those rooms running for her life, and just wondering what terror she must have been feeling.
Noemi Dominguez's body was found on June 5th in her bedroom with a fatal blow to her head.
The next day, Noemi Dominguez was murdered in her Southeast Houston home. She, too, had been beaten to death.
Let us not forget about the name Noemi Dominguez.
In the Southeast Houston neighborhood of that former school teacher, they were terrified after the body of that 26-year-old woman was found.
I think about her all the time. I think she's motivating still. I would say that she's easily one of the reasons why I try to serve the public. Because I'm here. And if she was here, I know she would do the same thing.
For weeks, the Dominguez family had no answers as to who could have killed Noemi or why. Then a call came from the Texas Rangers.
We finally got some information that the Texas Rangers had a lead and that they would be investigating that. We certainly knew the pattern and then the profile of the person. Somebody was, frequently riding the rails.
The suspect was 39-year-old Angel Maturino Resendiz, more commonly known by an alias, Rafael Resendiz Ramirez. He was a Mexican national who had been deported from the U.S. 17 times.
It really made us think about, well, how secure is our rail system, that people can just jump on trains and move around the country without anybody checking on them.
Those same questions had been plaguing a small town just outside Schulenburg, Texas. Just one day before Noemi Dominguez's body was found, there was a shocking discovery. A 73-year-old grandmother found bludgeoned to death inside her home.
Our top story on Eyewitness News tonight, new fears in a small Central Texas town. Another woman found murdered in her home.
I don't know if she did deserve this. She never hurt nobody, and she's always trying to help other people.
Josephine Kavitschka lived alone, about 90 miles away from Noemi Dominguez, in a house where she had spent her entire life. It was only a mile from the railroad tracks. Her son-in-law says his wife discovered the gruesome scene herself when she stopped by to see how her mother was doing.
She found her. She came running through the pasture. I knew something was wrong. And that's when we called 911.
Investigators determined Josephine Kavitschka and Noemi Dominguez had been killed with the same weapon. But the list of people who Angel Maturino Resendiz was accused of murdering was longer than the grieving families could fathom.
Now, homicide in a small Texas town. The double murder of a church pastor and his wife has stunned the small town of Weimar.
Only a month earlier, a pastor and his wife were also found bludgeoned to death in Weimar, Texas, about 3.5 miles from Josephine Kavitschka's house.
Very close community, and until this happened, people left their doors unlocked, left their cars unlocked, the windows down in the cars. Really nice, peaceful community.
Norman Cernick, who went by Skip, and his wife Karen lived in the parsonage outside the Weimar United Church of Christ. It was only a few feet away from the railroad tracks.
Reverend Cernick was, involved in all sorts of different activities, very popular in town, very friendly, just good people.
Skip is one of these guys that, you always had a Christmas party for the church council members. He liked to make homemade wine, as do a lot of the members in Weimar.
He and Karen would do cross stitch. She had her projects and he had his, and that was their Christmas gifts for people.
He was involved in all kinds of things. They'd go to all the basketball games, football games, softball games, all that kind of stuff that goes on in Weimar. Karen was very easy to talk to, very easy to get along with, very friendly.
They had a garden there, the Cernicks did, and she was out in that garden all the time. And evidently he had gone by there a number of times and seen her and decided, hey, I have the opportunity. She's there.
Sunday, May 2nd, 1999 was Skip Cernick's 47th birthday. He was supposed to lead church services that morning at 9:30. But when he and Karen didn't show up, members of the church council became concerned.
I was president of the church council, trying to figure out where the minister is so the church service can start. And then, of course, I volunteered to go into the parsonage, which was a big mistake. We have a safe room where we keep keys for all the buildings. And we had a parsonage key there, so I walked over with the key and unlocked the door and walked in. Well, the house was totally dark. All the blinds had been pulled down. Everything in the cabinets had been taken out. I thought they were house cleaning. Everything in the cabinets had been taken out because the kitchen counters were piled with dishes and pots and pans, et cetera, et cetera. But it was really, really dark. So I walked through the house, and then eventually the back room where there are 2 guest bedrooms. I mean, you walk on, let's see, it's on that side actually, and that's the master bedroom. And that's where I made my mistake. Well, I guess it wasn't. Anyway, that's when I found the bodies. When I walked into their bedroom.
Two people have been found murdered next door to their church. A parishioner found Reverend Norman Cernick and his wife dead in their home this morning when they didn't show.
Karen was covered in a blanket, so I didn't really see her. But I figured she was there. Skip was laying on his stomach, had some bruises on his body, which I didn't understand. And of course, I rang out of the house, picked up the phone, and called 911. EMS came. One of the EMS members walked in the house and came out, and when he came out, he was ashen.
My wife and I went to the Presbyterian Church in Giddings, and back then we had the pagers that had the numbers on them. And sitting in church, my pager went off, and it was to call the Sheriff's Department 911. So I got to a phone and called, and they told me that my officer was working what looked like a homicide. But I remember going through LaGrange, and I was running lights and siren, and my radio was on. I heard one of the LaGrange officers go, "Who in the world was that?" And one of the other guys said, "I think that was the chief of Weimar." And the other guy came back and said, "They must have something going on serious there." And he was right. When I got here, the officer had, the area cordoned off. We had called the Texas Rangers. At that time, there was no door on the garage. The garage was open. There was a door to the house from the garage, so it was pretty easy entry. He took identification, driver's license, that sort of stuff, and spread those out. He was notorious for taking trinkets. The way they were killed was just so terrible.
I was serving as pastor at a church in Denver. We had started a new worship service, a contemporary service. While I was there, somebody called and said, came down and said, "There's a phone call you need to take." And so I took the call, not knowing what to be expected, and it was Ted. He told me what had happened as far as Skip hadn't showed up to lead worship that day. At that point, they thought Skip and Karen had been shot. I was just shocked and stunned, and didn't even know what questions to ask.
I understand that he smashed her face with a sledgehammer, same one he used on Skip. And I'm not Roman Catholic, but I crossed myself before I went up to the podium to tell the congregation what had happened. It was only much later that I just completely broke down, and it was when Carol and I eventually came home, and with a glass of wine, me with my martini, we sat out on the porch and we just cried. And that was when I really broke down.
The first night after the Cernics were killed, the church had a gathering. The Neelys had gotten everybody together. Well, I walked around there and I broke up. You're working sort of with blinders on and doing what you need to be doing, and then you realize that, hey, this is friends. These are citizens. These are people that I know, that this guy has just killed their minister. And to see the grief on all their faces, that tore me up. That did. That was tough.
I had done hundreds of funerals, with families. I'd never been in that situation myself. A stunning number of people showed up. I mean, it was like Weimar was 1,400 people or something like that, and 1,200 people showed up for the service. It was a testimony to his impact in the community.
Skip and Karen were gardeners. They were planters of beauty. They were people who put things into life to create fruit to share with other people.
It was actually a time, instead of a spike down in my faith, it was a time when it went up. It was literally inspiring to see how people responded in gracious, kind support and an outpouring of love.
Skip coming here as pastor has been one of the blessings, the biggest blessings for Weimar.
And his wife is just as dear as he was.
I remember saying that day, this couldn't have been somebody local. It was just too heinous of a crime. You always hear that individuals doesn't go back to the scene of the crime. So I remember we had sort of a community gathering at the football stadium. And I spoke to all the people that were there, and I tried to reassure them that, we were doing everything we could, and we did. I mean, my guys, my officers were on the streets constantly. I mean, the patrol was unbelievable. He came back and killed Miss Kavitska, 3-4 miles from Weimar. That just freaked everybody out again. I told the sheriff then, he gave me some details about what had gone on. I said, Sheriff, that's him. That's him. He took a train out of her that she had for her grandkids and laid it out. People didn't lock their doors prior to that. They started locking their doors. They bought guns. They bought outside lights. They bought alarm systems. I had little old ladies that would come to the office, and bring me a pistol that hadn't been shot in years. And, Chief, can you show me how to shoot this? Can you show me how to shoot this in case I need it? It was a scary time, very scary.
I've heard a lot of people are starting to pack their weapons with them, so got to protect yourself out here in the country.
I've got my shotgun shells with me, and I just brought my shotgun over because we're going to do some painting this evening, and since my gun is legal, I'll keep it with me.
No sleeping at night. The kids are terrified. You can't even go walking at night. Dogs are barking and you wonder who's back there.
Every single train that came through, one of my officers was there, watching day and night to see if, there was somebody on the train. And we stopped lots of trains.
As the Texas Rangers began to investigate, they started connecting the same killer to murders all across the country.
They were here every day. And that's how we connected the things. We were sitting in my office. They talked to their ranger in Houston, and we started comparing things, colors of the vehicle, trinkets, all this sort of stuff. That's where we first got the connection between the two.
The Cernics' red Mazda turned up in San Antonio 3 weeks after their murders, and fingerprints found inside the car were linked with the murder of a prominent doctor in Houston.
Dr. Benton was doing amazing work and research for Angelman syndrome at Baylor College of Medicine. He was helping children.
It's a really rare disease in children, And so there were all these other families that were really counting on her research. And so they were also victims in all of this.
Westview was, I would call it a very sleepy little community. At that time, I'd been with West University Place for approximately 10 years. The main crimes that we focused on were burglaries, thefts. We had not had any type of a homicide case for a number of years.
39-year-old Dr. Claudia Benton was a pediatric geneticist, a wife, and mother of 2. In Christmas of 1998, her husband and their 11-year-old daughters went out of town to visit family. She stayed home here in Houston's West University neighborhood, which her house is right across the street from Union Pacific Railroad tracks. On December 17th, Dr. Claudia Benton never showed up for a presentation at Baylor College of Medicine. Her colleagues became concerned and called police for a welfare check.
It was around 4:15 or so, I got a call. I learned that a body had been found in a house, and I met with patrol officers who then led me inside the house and took me upstairs. I'll admit it's a little bit scary because you're going into the unknown and knowing that someone was just murdered in their home and such incredible violence occurred inside that home. It has an effect on a person. It had an effect on me.
When police entered the home, it had been ransacked. In the master bedroom, they found Dr. Benton's body covered in sheets. She had been beaten and stabbed to death.
He never brought his own weapons. He would always use a tool that he found in the house, and that was part of a knife in the butcher block that he found. There was a bronze-type metal figurine that he took off the mantle that he beat her with. I have chills now just talking about it and thinking about what I observed and what I saw. As the medical examiner was unraveling all of the covers, and we were able to see exactly what condition Dr. Benton was in, everybody in the room was just stunned. I mean, absolute stunned silence.
Evidence at the scene suggested Dr. Benton had been sleeping in bed when she was attacked in the middle of the night by Angel Maturino Resendiz.
The initial blow to her head just woke her up, and the fight was on. I really, truly believe she fought back so much that she almost was able to escape, just from the evidence there at the house. She was almost out of the room. Worst thing ever. I mean, every room was gone through. He went everywhere in the house looking for stuff. In his mind, it was his job. Kill people, steal jewelry, take it to Mexico and sell it.
It was right before Christmas. He opened their presents. It was just so awful.
We called more people in. Houston Police Department was called for assistance. Mr. Benton, I had to inform him and call him that there was a body found in his house, and just to hear his voice on the other end, it was just heart-wrenching dealing with that.
Police believe Resendiz may have been watching her before the attack.
I have every reason to believe he was watching the homes extensively to know how to get in, when to get in. I don't have much of a doubt that he may have seen Mr. Benton leave with his twin girls the night before for the flight to Arizona to see his parents. Unfortunately, some of the curtains to the upstairs of the Benton home were not shut, and so he could have also seen her walking around up there.
We had DNA because she was sexually assaulted, and we had fingerprints, and we needed to wait for that DNA because it was really new at the time to be developed so it could be put in the database, the national database.
But thanks to the fingerprint evidence, identifying Dr. Benton's killer didn't take long.
We did have an ID within about a week. It was right around either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day when we got the fingerprint results back. Numerous fingerprints were found on jewelry boxes and also on a piece of the steering column housing that was found in the garage. When Resendiz went to flee the scene in Dr. Benton's Jeep, he couldn't find her keys. And so he had to bust the steering column off and get a pair of needle nose pliers and actually turn a little knob of the ignition. And in doing so, and when he ripped the steering column off, he laid 4 beautiful fingerprints on the bottom of that. So, but we were just scratching the surface as to who he was at that point.
When DNA results came back, the evidence also linked Resendiz to the horrific attack of Holly Dunn and Chris Mayer in Kentucky.
I remember my detective coming to my apartment. I lived alone in my apartment. He comes in and he's like, "You might want to sit down. We have a suspect. We know who he is. We're 99.9% sure that it's him." He said he's going to be on America's Most Wanted this weekend, and I want you to watch it, and I want you to see if that's him. So I literally got 20 of my friends in my apartment, and I'm like, "Okay, we're going to watch America's Most Wanted, and you're all going to be here with me." And then they had footage where he was defending himself in court, and his voice. And I was like, that's him, 100%. From his voice, I was like, I could tell you from that voice that that's him 100%.
She's the only one that survived. And I mean, the gory detail she told about what he had done was just, you knew that, you know, there was real, true evil in that individual.
March of '99, I flew to DC and was a part of America's Most Wanted, trying to get tips from all over the country to have get some exposure and get his face out there to the public. And then Weimer comes up, and we know once the DNA match was made that we had an absolute incredible crime on our hands and a very elusive suspect.
We knew we had a serial killer who was still killing, who was still not apprehended.
On June 21st, 1999, the FBI placed Resendiz on its 10 most wanted list under his best-known alias, Rafael Resendiz Ramirez. A federal reward of $50,000 was offered for information leading to his arrest, in addition to a $75,000 reward offered in Texas and Kentucky. This came on the same day Resendiz was charged in 2 more murders. A week prior, an 80-year-old farmer, George Morger, had been shot to death with his own shotgun at his rural home in Gorham, Illinois, a few yards away from a rail line. His 52-year-old daughter, Carolyn Frederick's body was also found. She had been bludgeoned to death with the same shotgun.
Can't believe he's just a nice old man. He never harmed anybody, and he was an acquaintance of ours and a friend of the family, and it's just terrible.
All of us have not been able to sleep well at night, haven't been able to let the kids out and about without fear of something happening because we didn't know where he was.
All of his victims were just such good people. Not to make a moral judgment on victims, but God, like a minister, a school teacher, a doctor, a farmer and his daughter. I mean, it's just grandmothers. It was just where they lived. They were just unlucky.
In June of 1999, the FBI formed a multi-agency task force in Houston to work to capture Resendiz. Investigators made a startling discovery. On June 1st of that same year, an INS border agent stopped Resendiz as he was trying to enter New Mexico illegally. They wound up letting him go. He snuck back into the country just days later and wound up killing Josephine Kavitchka and Noemi Dominguez that same week.
I was under the impression that if I got a set of fingerprints to a customs agent, that they would be able to get it to the border and enter in his prints as being a wanted person. I actually gave a good set of his fingerprints to a customs special agent. We found out about it like a week later, and there's his pictures. And I never got an answer from any of the agents of why the prints weren't entered into the system as him being wanted. We had AFIS, the automated fingerprint ID system. It should have been possible in my viewpoint.
The acting inspector general of the U.S. Department of Justice faulted INS for failing to properly train employees on its automated fingerprint system.
We had a lot of really, really good interagency cooperation with the FBI, with customs, with immigration, the ICE agents on the border and so forth. But he just had one heck of a knack of getting through the system.
Sick person.
And he was this far from me, you know, and he was asking me, you know, do you have money?
News coverage of the so-called railroad killer intensified and tips came pouring in.
When you call the command center, your phone call is first answered by the people sitting here. They turn your phone call over to the investigators.
So much of what we got from the public was lookalikes. Resendiz had so many different looks. A simple little haircut, glasses. Sometimes he had them on, sometimes he didn't have them on. Sometimes he would gain 20, 30 pounds. The next picture, he's 40 pounds lighter and virtually unrecognizable as what he was beforehand. So that was a big issue, the way the man could change his looks like a chameleon.
In West University Place, Sergeant Ken Maha began to investigate Resendiz's past.
I was able to put together a timeline probably from when he was maybe 17 or 18 years old up until present time of how he moved across the country. And that was another obstacle that we had too, because he was so mobile. We believed that he could simply look at a train and know where it's going and know where it's heading, just from the markings on it, the kind of freight that was on the train. He was very, very well versed in hopping trains and train travel. He was just all over the Midwest into California and everywhere.
He was like a phantom. You didn't know. He was completely off the grid, just hopping on and hopping off trains. You never knew where he was going to pop up.
He killed the Cernics, went back to Mexico, came back here, killed Miskovitza, went back to Mexico, and he'd go back to Mexico and come back and go back and back. You know, it was almost a ritual with him. He'd stay there for a week or so and head out again.
Resendiz had a criminal history dating back to 1976. He was 17 years old when he was arrested for illegally entering the U.S., but he would keep crossing the border, and records show he was sentenced to prison or jail in the United States 7 times. That includes a 1980 conviction for severely beating an elderly man in Miami. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison for assault and burglary in that case, but was paroled after 5 years. He was also arrested for other crimes like car theft and falsely representing U.S. citizenship. In June of 1999, the FBI made a startling discovery. Resendiz had a common-law wife in Mexico. Houston's ABC 13 sent a crew to Resendiz's hometown of Rodeo, Mexico, to talk with family and neighbors who may have seen him. Resendiz lived in this White House with his common-law wife and their 3-month-old daughter. Julieta Dominguez Reyes claimed she last saw him in June of 1999 and that he had returned from the U.S. for 4 or 5 days. But then, she says, Resendiz got a phone call and told her the FBI was looking for him in an old case, so he started packing. She worked as a lab technician at a government-run health clinic. His mother and stepfather lived in a house down the street, and Resendiz taught English at a building right in the middle of town square.
What makes Rafael Resendiz Ramirez stand out in the United States is the fact he's a suspected serial killer. But here in Rodeo, it's just the opposite. They say that he doesn't go to cantinas, doesn't drink, doesn't even go to dances because his religion won't allow it.
Resendiz's common-law wife claims he learned to ride the rails early in life because of family problems at home. She says at age 11, he ran away to Acapulco by himself, then traveled into the U.S. In July of 1999, she agreed to fly to Houston to be interviewed by the FBI.
His wife made a public plea for him to turn himself in. Julieta Dominguez Reyes flew to Houston from Mexico last week to tell the FBI what she knows. She did not want to talk publicly, so FBI agents issued that plea on her behalf.
We knew that the Rangers and FBI had been in touch with, I believe, his sister, and had hopefully worked out an arrangement where he was going to be arrested, but we didn't know. He just sort of sat on pins and needles, hoping that it really worked out.
I was able to talk to his sister in New Mexico. At that time that I talked to her, she did not have a lot of information to offer up.
But it was Resendiz's sister in New Mexico who eventually brokered an agreement with Texas Rangers for her brother to turn himself in.
Family members had been in contact with
Resendiz Ramirez over the past few days and facilitated the law enforcement effort for the surrender of Ramirez.
For weeks, a Texas Ranger sergeant had been building a relationship with the Resendiz family. Then he finally got a call from Resendiz's sister in New Mexico. His family had convinced him to turn himself in, something he said he would never do.
Well, Sergeant Drew Carter is the name to know. He's the Texas Ranger who built a relationship with the fugitive's family, and it was him who negotiated the surrender of the alleged railroad serial killer.
Honesty is never hard, and sincerity is something that people sense, and it's not easy to hide that or to covertly suggest that you're being sincere. And that's what I did. I was honest with the family.
I think maybe his family convinced him, because they probably were afraid he'd get killed if they caught him out in the world.
I think the family's motivation was to, in part, was to bring some type of normalcy back to their lives, which they would never ever have had because I was serious. I know my counterparts were serious. We were not going to stop.
On July 13, 1999, Resendiz met with Sergeant Carter on a bridge connecting Zaragoza, Mexico and El Paso, Texas. He rode across the border in a pickup truck driven by his brother and surrendered on the Texas side.
Well, when the individual did approach in the pickup truck, and that's a face that has just been shown all over the country for a long period of time now, and it's a face that I've been working on for better part of 6 months. So when I did see that face, there was a little bit of excitement there because I finally said this is going to happen. He got out of the truck. Again, you got to remember that up until this point, this is not someone that I've spoken with face to face, and there was things that I was supposed to do to make him come over. The things that I was doing and discussing enabled him to come over, and that happened. And so it's just like anything else. He stuck out his hand, or I stuck out my hand, and we just shook hands. And then I handcuffed him, and he's in custody, and we go on. Business goes on.
He wanted some guarantees before he turned himself in. Kosher food, psychiatric help, and visitation. Okay, sure, we can do all of that. And just to have, to see him walking across that bridge, I just kept thinking he was going to turn around. I mean, I could barely breathe. We were watching it on TV in the office. And just to see him finally, the relief when he got to America, oh my God, I will never forget that.
The most wanted man in America was finally in custody.
Non-U.S. citizen, is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay. You also have a right to contact the consulate of your native country in respect to these charges. Do you have any question about your rights?
No, sir.
You understand what I've explained to you?
Yes, sir.
After a brief court appearance in El Paso, Resendiz was flown to Houston to face charges in connection with Dr. Claudia Benton's murder.
It's just a matter of time before he steps out of that plane and into the patrol cars to have his drive downtown. That is indeed a fact. Here he is coming out of the door right now, dressed in a long-sleeve shirt. His hands are cuffed in front of him. Not a great demeanor about him.
He was placed in a seat belted in. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't move. He either looked out the window the whole trip or slept.
The suspected serial killer Rafael Resendiz Ramirez is now downtown at the Houston Police Headquarters.
As you can see, a lot of people here standing around. We've had quite a crowd here today. The police officers were guarding the road just to make this an easy entrance here.
When he was first caught, he was scrawny and skinny. I was there at HPD headquarters downtown when they brought him in, and I rode up the elevator with him to the laboratory to get DNA samples. I hate to say this, but I could have taken him out in the elevator, and I thought about it for a second, okay? But, you know, then what would that make me? It was a natural reaction from what this guy did.
You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to retain counsel.
They flew him to Houston, and he didn't get in until like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I knew he was going to come to probable cause court, so I stayed up so I could be the one to read probable cause.
Crime scene unit from the Houston Police Department came and processed the scene.
And they brought him in, and he was tanned, ropey muscles. He is a small guy, but super strong looking, and his eyes were just black.
Do you have any questions?
¿Tienes algunas preguntas?
Si todo esto se puede apurar de una vez para dar un culpable, yo no quiero
Can all this be done very quickly so that I can say that I'm guilty?
He was scary. He almost looked like a wild animal. I don't know how to say it any other way.
Is the name Rafael Resendiz Ramirez, is that a name that you made up or does it belong to somebody?
Es un apodo que
Tío mío.
an uncle of mine.
Very surprised that he gave himself up because he could have stayed in Mexico for a long, long time. He could have kept the charade up a long, long time, and he could have crossed over the border and killed a lot more people.
But during a court appearance in Houston, Resendiz said he was unaware he could ultimately face the death penalty when he had turned himself in.
El gobierno de los Estados Unidos nos mintió porque no era el trato de llevarlo a la pena de muerte, si no, no se hubiera entregado.
When he was in Mexico, you know, if you bring somebody back from Mexico, you agree with the Mexican government that you will not seek death. And so that was why it was critical that Drew Carter, the Texas Ranger, was able to get him to come into Texas so we could seek death.
The manhunt is over. Now the prosecution begins, and it will start right here in Houston.
He's going to be tried in Harris County first, believe me.
DNA samples taken from Resendiz in custody matched evidence found at the scene of Dr. Benton's murder. He was indicted for capital murder in her case a week and a half after his surrender. In Weimar, prosecutors were already preparing for a possible trial in the Skip and Karen Cernick murders, but it was determined Resendiz would go to trial in Houston the following year for Dr. Benton's murder.
We had an excellent case, and I knew we did. But Colorado County is a small county. We had already talked to the state to see if we could get some help there because it was going to be tremendously expensive. Then when it changed and the trial was in Houston for that murder, we were sort of relieved, but we knew that if anything fell through there, we were on top of it.
Kentucky, up there, they wanted to go ahead and try the case. I'm like, let us seek death. I mean, we will try to get death down here. So we were talking to all the other jurisdictions as well, letting us try it first.
I want to go back over with you your rights again this morning.
By July of 1999, Resendiz was charged in 6 murders and suspected in 2 others. Then, a 9th slaying was tied to him. 87-year-old Leafy Mason had been bludgeoned to death with an antique iron inside her home in Hughes Springs, Texas. That was October of 1998. She lived yards away from a rail line, and her body had been wrapped in blankets. Fingerprint evidence found on her window matched Angel Maturino Resendiz. He was charged with capital murder in her death.
Lawyers for Resendiz don't think their client can get a fair trial in Houston because of all the extensive pre-trial publicity of the case.
Coverage of Resendiz's surrender made headlines across the nation.
The jury has been picked. The prosecution is ready to start calling witnesses, but first, a defense motion on moving the trial out of Houston has to be heard, and that may cause another delay in this case.
His court-appointed lawyers argued the trial should be moved outside of Houston.
I came and talked to Mr. Resendiz to confirm that that was indeed his desire.
But the judge ruled the trial would go on.
After Judge Harmon independently polled each juror about pretrial publicity, he then quickly denied the change of venue motion.
On May 8, 2000, testimony finally began in Resendiz's murder trial. He appeared in court looking so different. Many reporters didn't recognize him.
And by the time we went to court, he was overweight and pasty looking, and I realized he's not a danger in the courtroom. He wasn't a danger once he was in custody. He was killing people while they slept. He was just an opportunistic killer who used whatever weapon was available.
The trial revealed to the world the depths of the railroad killer's depravity. The Harris County District Attorney, Johnny Holmes, personally made the opening statement.
Claudia Benton had not gone to the clinic because she had been stabbed to death, beaten 19 times in the head, causing 4 fractures. Her right arm was broken. She had bruises and abrasions of defensive wounds all over her body, and they later learned she had been physically assaulted and raped.
His court-appointed defense attorney, Alan Tanner, followed. He admitted Resendiz was responsible for killing 9 people, including Dr. Benton. But, he argued, Resendiz had a serious mental disorder.
The defendant has no remorse for any of these crimes.
defendant, in his mind, thinks that these people are evil and deserve to die.
Resendiz sat quietly, emotionless, as his defense team read strange excerpts from jailhouse letters he had written.
If you get to kill a chupacabras, he or she will release microorganism that is to eat bios but not plants.
Resendiz wrote a number of letters to the media and those involved in his case.
He wrote me a couple of letters that were very coherent and straightforward. You think you know what you're doing, you don't. I mean, kind of talking about I'm young and that kind of thing. He had a lot of letters before he was caught that were political in nature and very coherent. I mean, he was always objecting to things, I think, if I'm remembering right, the U.S. government and that kind of stuff, but then not until he was incarcerated did the weird stuff happen, like sending fingernails and hair to his defense attorney, and all the weird angel stuff started.
He didn't think he had done anything wrong by killing Dr. Benton. And his reason for that was because he was half man, half angel, and it was really the angel that made him do it.
A psychiatrist is expected to take the stand today in the murder trial of confessed railroad serial killer and Maturino Resendiz.
A psychiatrist hired by the defense used some of Resendiz's rambling jailhouse letters to the media to enforce his diagnosis of schizophrenia. Some of them had been subpoenaed from TV stations, including this 11-page letter to ABC 13. In it, he talks about an inner demon and says he surrendered because he was afraid the U.S. would put his common-law wife in jail.
He was mentally ill, but we knew he wasn't insane. If you know the difference between right and wrong, it's a very simple way to understand it, but that is the standard. And so we started looking through all of the crimes that we had, showing evidence that he was trying to elude police. I remember with the Weimer case, he unscrewed her porch light and he unscrewed the light bulb inside his car, so when he opened his car door, the light wouldn't come on. Little things like that. There were a million indications like that.
As far as what made him do what he was doing, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think anyone will ever know. I remember almost had to eat my words, but at the crime scene, first found out what all had happened, I made the remark.
Just a sick person. I don't know how else to describe somebody that would.
An individual who does not need to be on the streets.
I realized later that I probably shouldn't have said that, because that provided a defense of insanity for the individual that was going to be tried. When he's doing the things that he did, like setting out the train, you got to have something. When he lays out identification, when he takes trinkets and takes them back to Mexico, all those things, that's a sane individual. He knew what he was doing.
The circumstances of each murder were so horrible, and several of the jurors were crying. But they had to know. They had to know what he had done.
Please don't let this man deceive again. He's a cold-blooded killer. Once again, I want to emphasize that each and every doctor who examined him did not think he was faking.
The jury ultimately rejected the insanity plea.
Our top story on Eyewitness News at 11:30. After sifting through a mound of physical evidence and after nearly 2 weeks of expert testimony, the jury in the murder trial of Angel Maturino Resendiz has finally reached a verdict.
Mr. Resendiz, would you please rise? We, the jury, find the defendant Angel Maturino Resendiz, also known as Rafael Resendiz Ramirez, guilty of capital murder as charged.
And when I talked to the jury afterwards, it is really hard to think that someone who does stuff like he did isn't crazy. It's very hard to understand that there are some people who are very ill, but they still know what they're doing is wrong.
The next step for jurors was determining whether Resendiz should face execution.
They have to answer questions. And the first question basically is, do you believe this person will be a continuing threat to society? And if they say, no, we don't, that's a life sentence. But if they say yes, then they go to the next question, which is, looking at all of the evidence in the entire trial, guilt and punishment, do you see anything in it that's mitigating enough to warrant a sentence of life? And if they say, no, we don't, that's a death sentence.
During the punishment phase, jurors heard heart-wrenching testimony from witnesses in other murders Resendiz was accused of committing.
What we're going to present, what we're going to tell you about are the people.
So we started with Holly because she was the only survivor.
I wanted justice from the time that this happened. So, I mean, I was gonna get my day in court. I had said that all along, like, just put me in front of him.
He did think she was dead.
I really wanted to do it, but then when it actually came to it, I had a nervous breakdown and cried and screamed. And again, cried and screamed. And almost, I don't know if I would have done it had my family not been there with me. They walked me through the door that only the jury had used until that point. And then I just remember my breathing was really shallow. I had trouble breathing. I mean, Devin was like, look straight at me, I'll be right in front of you.
And I was telling her, just look at me, just look at me. Don't, because she was shaking.
I mean, I was crying on the stand from the moment she asked me probably the first question. I remember her first question was like, what did you do last weekend? And I was like, oh, I graduated from college, you know, like, and I was really proud to say I graduated from college and be like, my life went on, you didn't ruin me, you know? And they get to that point where they say, is the person who attacked you in the courtroom today? And so I was like, yes, I know he's here, this is his trial. They say, can you please tell us what he's wearing? And I'm like, I haven't looked at him. When I looked at him, his eyes literally were black and he had no emotion on his face.
He just sat there, but he was very interested. I mean, he was listening. You know, he was totally paying attention to everyone, especially with Holly, I remember.
When Holly got up and she testified, it was over. It was over. You know, she put the nail in his coffin, if you want to say it like that. You know, she's the only one that survived. The gory details she told about what he had done was just, you had to believe her.
Talking about closure, it did do her a world of good to confront him in a powerful way from a position of strength and say, you're the one who did this to me and killed my boyfriend, you know? It was, I mean, you could have heard a pin drop when she was testifying. It was remarkable.
The jury was crying. The judge was crying. I mean, everybody was crying, but he was literally emotionless.
My skin crawled just looking at him. He just, you know, I knew how evil he was. And to have no sense of remorse, you saw no emotion, no nothing.
Seeing him in court, he certainly didn't do himself any favors in trying to, and certainly his attorneys didn't try to humanize him in any way. But I remember seeing him and thinking, being angry, being very angry, especially at the time. I remember reading about the other victims and their different backgrounds, and none of it was a pattern. And I think when we heard the testimony at trial, it made a lot more sense.
That what we have here is a career burglar who's developed a taste for murder and rape.
You know, this person really was not well. I testified because the prosecutors were pursuing the death penalty, and I wanted to say my piece as well.
He went to the bedroom and lifted the covers and found his sister, Noemi.
He did not make eye contact with me, and I did look over there. Since then, you know, I've been a prosecutor, and I'm an attorney now, and I don't think there's any way that you can prepare a witness to look across and see the person. You can certainly let anger fill your heart, but realizing that what I might say, I may not be prepared for what might come out of my mouth.
Do you remember how long the jury took to deliberate over sentencing?
Maybe a little over an hour. Everyone was expecting it. Everyone was expecting it. Once they had the guilty, there was just no other verdict. Just the gruesomeness and the inhumanity of what he did. I mean, there was nobody who didn't think this guy deserved the death penalty. He was the poster child for it.
The Mexican government is now trying to keep Angel Maturino Resendiz out of the Texas death chamber. A jury sentenced that Mexican national to die by lethal injection.
Mexican consulate officials immediately supported automatic appeals of his death sentence. In Mexico, capital punishment is not allowed.
He has a fair trial. We respect the laws of this country, but also we have to respect lives.
I remember the tussle with the Mexican government. We made sure, I mean, every T was crossed. I mean, he had every right afforded to him, including really good lawyers appointed to him, great investigator appointed to him.
The concern was that he didn't have any funds to hire a lawyer. He had a court-appointed lawyer at trial, And sometimes the overwhelming power of the state versus an individual, even with means to hire a lawyer, is sometimes overwhelming.
But in 2001, Resendiz himself requested that his appeals end and he be executed as soon as possible.
There was an issue whether or not he was competent to waive his appeals, which he wanted to do. And so the court appointed some doctors, and they said that he was competent to waive his appeals, so he waived his appeals.
Resendiz even began confessing to more murders that year because he thought it would speed up his execution. Police ultimately concluded Resendiz was the prime suspect in at least 6 other killings throughout the 80s and 90s in Florida, Texas, California, and Georgia. In many cases, he provided information only investigators could know, and even led police to the body of a missing runaway teenager in Florida.
He said he wasn't afraid to die because he wasn't going to die.
Former Associated Press correspondent Michael Groszczyk covered the Resendiz case from the start and interviewed him on death row in Livingston, Texas.
And what you're trying to do is put a voice with the person. You certainly don't want to glorify him or her. His left arm, right here, was all scarred. I asked the prison folks, and he had a history of self-mutilation. And those were the scars from him continuing to cut himself. I remember that very vividly. And I also asked him if he picked up a nickname on the row. And he said they called him Choo Choo Man. And he smiled at that. And it occurred to me that he was, reveling in the notoriety of his crimes.
In prison, Resendiz continued to write letters to the media and sought publicity. He even tried to sell murder memorabilia online.
He's always marketing himself. I got letters in here that we confiscated that he was sending to dealers trying to, offer his hair and offer his autograph and anything that he can find attached to his name that he can make money on.
I had sent it to friends. I had sent it to many people, California and everything, and they went and sell it. This past month that I sent one to my family, but people think that I just went and making money.
While Resendiz technically didn't directly receive any money for the things he was trying to sell, murderabilia dealers did. Resendiz's offerings were collected by out-of-state dealers who in turn sold the items and sent money to a third party. It's believed Resendiz's family in Mexico may have profited.
There's nothing more nauseating and disgusting than to find out the person who murdered your loved ones now has items being hawked by third-party dealers for the world to see simply because they become famous because they murdered people and now they've achieved infamy and they can make money off of it.
But the family of Dr. Claudia Benton filed and won a lawsuit to stop third parties from making any money off of murderabilia. In 2001, Texas lawmakers passed a law to prevent convicted killers from profiting from their own notoriety.
He was among a minority of inmates who actually acknowledged that he did the killings. He said that he could recall the details of each killing and that it looked to him like he was in a tunnel and it was very quiet and it was kind of in a distance where he could see it, but there was no sound, no noise. We talked about how he got around the country. He knew that if he got on a train that had 6 or 8 engines on it, it was going across the country. I remember him saying it was better than Greyhound. And he was convinced that even though his body may die, he wasn't going to die.
The man known as the Railway Killer today heard a Houston judge label him competent enough to be put to death next week.
In 2003, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed Resendiz's conviction and death sentence. Every other appeal in state and federal court was denied.
Then the next stage would be whether you're competent to be executed. That's the stage where we came in.
An execution date was set for May of 2006.
We actually got hired in 2006, so we didn't have a lot of time to work.
The Mexican government brought in defense attorney Jack Zimmerman to review the Resendiz case.
The general counsel is located here in Houston, and they contacted some local lawyers that specialized in capital cases. We decided to answer the call and talk to the General Counsel of Mexico. They agreed to fund some top psychiatrists and psychologists in the country to see if there was an issue of competency.
Resendiz's new defense team brought in 2 mental health experts to examine him.
Dr. Stewart was from California. He was one of the finest in the country. Constitutionally, in this country, we don't execute people who are not competent. You have to understand that there's an execution scheduled. You have to know when the execution is scheduled. He reported back to us that there was no question that Mr. Resendiz was not competent to be executed. He didn't understand any of those 3 things. And we hired another doctor named Puente, Dr. Puente from Arizona. He came in, did the same kind of evaluation, and reported also in his to a degree of medical certainty on how Resendiz was not competent to be executed.
Both doctors said Resendiz suffered from paranoid schizophrenic delusions.
Mr. Resendiz did not understand that he was going to die. His reason for not understanding that, in our view, and in the doctor's view, 3 of the doctor's views, was that he didn't understand that he was going to die. He rejected that. He said he was half man and half angel, and that he couldn't be killed. And it was the angel that was in him at the time that he killed this doctor that he was convicted of killing that made him do it.
Resendiz's defense team quickly filed a motion that delayed his May execution.
And that led to this hearing that we had called a competency hearing. There were 2 issues at the hearing. The first was, did he really believe that he couldn't be killed, that he wouldn't die? So the second issue was he malingering, which is a fancy term for was he faking all this? We thought he was not mentally competent. Absolutely no doubt in our mind, or we wouldn't have proceeded, we wouldn't have filed the motion in the first place. The guy was not here, right? His mind was somewhere else.
The state was allowed to hire 2 of its own mental health experts, and the court also appointed 2 more experts.
So we had 6 experts who were going to make an opinion as to whether or not he was competent. The majority of these experts believed that he was suffering from some type of a mental illness. The only one who thought that he was, quote, normal, saw him for like 1 hour and 16 minutes on one visit and 1 hour and 24 minutes on the other. And yet he came up with a challenge that contradicted these others who spent 6 and 8 hours each, multiple times with multiple doctors. And then the 6th doctor didn't even show up for trial. The doctors that came down on the side of that he's competent were the ones that Judge Harmon went with.
The execution date was just days after the judge's ruling, on June 27, 2006.
Angel Maturino Resendiz goes to the death chamber at 6 o'clock tonight up in Huntsville.
He is a man that has been busy today, brought this morning from death row at the Polensky unit in Livingston to here in Huntsville. He has also been busy with visitors. He has seen his mother and also his 7-year-old daughter, spending time with them this morning.
When you get in there, the inmate is already on the gurney, strapped down. He can see you. You can see him. You can hear him. There's a microphone over his face. At the edge of the gurney, he had this nervous twitch on his foot, and he continued to move it that way. That struck me. I hadn't seen that before. At least it's very unusual.
There are 7 different family members from different victims of Mr. Resendiz that are scheduled on the list to witness the execution, as well as several members of Resendiz's own family.
He did ask for forgiveness. So he's looking at George Benton, and he's looking at the Cernick's relatives. Asked if you had a last statement. He said, "Yes, sir. I want to ask if it is in your heart to forgive me." And he's looking at the witnesses. "You don't have to. I know I allowed the devil to rule my life. I just ask you to forgive me and ask the Lord to forgive me for allowing the devil to deceive me. I thank God for having patience with me. I don't deserve to cause you pain. You did not deserve this. I deserve what I am getting." Then they start administering the drugs. It's very quick, and it's like watching someone go to sleep.
The man known as the Railroad Killer has been executed. Angel Resendiz was put to death by lethal injection after his final appeal was rejected.
He was very manipulative. He was a very smart man. He knew how to manipulate society, knew how to manipulate our system, and so I found it to be very shallow.
That was justice for everyone. And I remember the night he got executed. I was a judge by then, and this may sound morbid to people, but and just so be it. But I can't tell you how much I despised him. And so I bought a bottle of champagne and I toasted the TV when I watched them reporting live from Huntsville that he had been executed.
You know, he killed a minister and his wife, and I'm glad he's dead.
Whether it was true justice, I don't know. You know, how do you define true justice? The families are never going to get those people back. You can't do anything about that.
I think what my family felt more than anything was relief that we didn't have to worry about this person being out there. Ultimate judgment is going to come from somebody far more powerful, more important than us. And we should not have evil or hatred in our hearts. We can only just try to be good people.
After coming face to face with evil, Resendiz's only living survivor chooses to live her life helping other people who have faced abuse.
So I was going out speaking. I get asked to do a safety talk during recruitment at the University of Kentucky. I can't tell you the empowering feeling that it had. I cried through almost the entire thing. I had it written down exactly what I was gonna say word for word. I cried. It was so empowering. I mean, it was like an energy that I can't explain. When you start getting that story outside of you, it loses its control over you. You are then in control of it. So I'm like, anybody that wants to hear me, I'll talk. It's funny because I'd gotten to that point in my speaking, especially in my hometown, where I would speak and they'd say, we'd love to help you. What can we do? Who can we give money to? Who do you support? What do you want? While I'm figuring that out, I get the phone call of a person calling me saying, hey, you know what? We want to start this advocacy center in Evansville and we want to name it after you. Would that be okay? And so I told him, I'm like, you can name it after me, but I need to get a little bit more involved than just you having it named after me. So if that's okay, like we can do this.
So Holly's House is a non-residential child and adult victims advocacy center. And we provide support for survivors and their families who have survived intimate crimes, and then we prevent abuse before it begins with our school-age prevention program.
It's been amazing to see her get married and have kids, and that she has decided that she needs to live her life in honor of the other victims who weren't able to survive. She was driven to lead her life. The first time I heard her say that, I just cried.
This was the night that I won the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Award. It was an outstanding award for community service.
Holly helped to bring the community around this concept, and she helped to fill the gap for victims here in this community, and now in 8 counties we're working to help that. We're serving 821 victims in a year.
While those who were lost will forever be missed, their impact on the world and those who knew them will never be forgotten.
I still miss him. I still think about him. Every once in a while I reach for the phone because I want to call in and tell him some piece of good news or get some piece of advice. And I miss that opportunity.
We gave our firstborn son, the middle name Christopher. And I'm lucky that I have a husband who, I mean, I'm sure he wishes that he could have met Chris. And I mean, keeping pictures of him around, and you know, my kids know that that's mommy's friend that went to heaven, and that, you know, that's what they know for now, and that's fine. Chris's last words to me is everything's gonna be okay. And I've always said, like, everything was okay for me, but not for him. Like, he was saying it to me. He'll always be part of our lives.
You know, I think if my sister had lived, I'm curious to see what her next venture would be. Would she have gone back to graduate school? Would she have stayed in Houston? But I like to think that she was probably the type that would have gone on to become a college professor. She loved shaping minds. She's the type of person that, if she had extra time, she would be helping somebody, whether it was a friend or a stranger. We've all learned from Noemi that you've got to live life. You've got to just go out there and live it.